So we know that collateralized loan obligations and debt obligations fueled the credit crisis of 2007 onwards.
For sure.
And you feel these same securities could potentially fuel the next credit crisis?
I honestly think it would be a new one now that we're looking in 2017. Okay. What could fuel this crisis, could be private equity firms today, amazingly, have $4 trillion of assets in companies they own and dry powder that they have to spend. They are actually bigger than they were in total. They are bigger than they were certainly in 1987, but even bigger than 2006 or 2007. So they have all this money because interest rates are low. I mean, partially because interest rates are low, and state pensions and sovereign governments are investing a lot in their firms, looking for rates of return of 13, 14% a year, which they're being promised. So private equity firms who have become more institutionalized, a KKR, a Blackstone, an Apollo, these are all publicly traded companies today, all something that's happened in the last 4 to 5 years. They have tons of money to invest. They're paying multiples of earnings that are higher than in 86, 87, than 86, 87, and also than 2006, 2007. They're paying record high multiples. So we do have a dangerous situation, just as dangerous as 06, 07. What happened in 06 and 07 is they bought companies employing 1 out of every 10 Americans in the private sector. I predicted in the book, and not just me, Bain Consulting Group said it, former Treasury Secretary Paulson was scared of this, that a good percentage of them would go bankrupt by now. Half of them have not gone bankrupt. However, more than half of the 10 biggest LBOs have gone bankrupt. Caesars Entertainment, Energy Future Holdings, the biggest utility in Texas. A fair number of companies have gone under, but it hasn't been quite the disaster that I predicted in the book. Instead, we have a lot of zombie companies because they've been able to refinance because interest rates are so low. But the danger is still just as much there as it was in 06, 07. And if interest rates rise, you're going to have a lot of companies that are stuck.
So it's just been postponed? It's
been postponed to a degree. There has been a drip. It's not like nothing's happened. A fair number of companies, big companies, have gone under. But the disaster that I thought might be coming by now has not happened because a lot of companies have been refinanced. But now, quietly or not so quietly, you're seeing it, for example, in retail. A lot of these retailers who are going under, like a Gymboree, like a Rue 21, like a J. Crew, part of it is Amazon. And it'd be, you can't say that's not part of it. That's why their earnings are falling, but they're so much in debt, they can't take any change, and therefore a lot of these companies in Neiman Marcus are collapsing because of the high leverage and because of Amazon.
But not all these companies are owned by PE firms.
Yeah, all the ones I just mentioned are.
They are?
Yeah, they all are.
Okay.
Retailers,
Which retailers are owned by PE firms?
Well, so Neiman Marcus, Gymboree, Guitar Center, Rue 21, which is expected to go bankrupt this week or next week. I'm sure I'm forgetting, I know I'm forgetting some. But there are many of the top retailers that are collapsing are all owned by private equity firms. In fact, most. It's a majority.
I read that article. I didn't realize they were all owned by PE firms.
Yeah. So the way that the danger of when leverage buyouts started, the idea in the 70s when the first leverage buyouts were happening is you would target a widget maker or some company that had very steady earnings. So when you buy a company, you put, say, 20% down, the company borrows the 80%, and all that money goes to the seller. So it's like if you or I buy a mortgage, we put 20, 30% down, but we borrow the 70%. In a leverage buyout, the company borrows the money. Then, of course, they have to pay the interest on those loans. That can work if the earnings are steady. It doesn't work if to pay that interest you cut back on research and development and other areas and the earnings start to fall, or an unexpected event happens like Amazon if we're talking retail. So there basically is very little room for error. So in the original models, they picked companies that they thought could handle this debt. In some cases they did. But as the leveraged buyout industry, or today called the private equity industry, became bigger and bigger and bigger, well, it's harder to find companies that can just handle that much debt. There are some, but a lot can't. So if any unexpected event occurs, like Amazon emerging in the marketplace and causing your earnings to fall 15–20%, if you have that much debt, you can't handle it. If you didn't have the debt, you'd still be profitable, and maybe you'd be able to develop your internet presence better. Certainly you might be able to weather the storm, but with that debt, there's no chance.